Oh, okay.
All right, you guys ready to go live?
Sure.
Okay, we're live. Good morning. Welcome.
Does everybody know why we do this?
It started a long time ago because Doug Sleater was on one morning, and he was in Hawaii right after, I think it was right after the Sleater conference. He and Cheryl always have gone to Hawaii afterwards. They have a place there. And speaking of Hawaii, we're going to talk about Hawaii again today.
Good.
We're going to talk about Hawaii again. But there's what Doug did this thing where he's like, hang 10 because he was in Hawaii. And I guess somehow that evolved into me going, all right, like,
show your guns.
So it kind of, show us your guns. That's right. Because it was my way of getting everybody like, flex their muscles and wake up and get going in the morning. So
that's just a stupid habit. you say 5 and we all go.
So
Better
anyway,
than beating the monkey. We used to spank the monkey.
we did. Well, my monkey, his goggles came off.
Gina, remember?
Where's your monkey?
There's a very different connotation of that in my house of men.
You know what? You guys are embarrassing Matt. He's a very professional guy.
Do you think that accountants are boring, Matt?
Not at all.
Twisted perhaps.
If I did, I wouldn't do what I do.
You know what? I ran across a comment last night. I had a client I was sending reports to at like 8 o'clock. It was the first chance I had to do it. And after I was done, I was sitting in my bedroom watching TV, whatever, and I have my laptop in my lap. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to update my Pinterest boards. I hadn't done that in a while. And I wanted to create some new boards for, the new bookkeeping fundamentals course and some other stuff. So I ran across a comment because I have a music board. And like Sarah asked me this morning when we first signed on, I was listening to my trance electronica is that's what I listen to when I want to get pumped up and get going, right? So I listen to that a lot in the morning. And I had a song in that genre on this music board, and a friend of mine commented saying, you are probably the only accountant that I know who actually listens to DJ Tiesto. And I'm like, cool. I guess people don't think accountants even listen to exciting music. But anyway.
I think I work at night if I don't have some driving music to keep me going.
That's funny. So Friday, February 12th, 2016. This is our ZibWem Zoom in between Wall and Main. Who's been following what's going on Wall Street? It's scary.
Yeah, it is pretty scary.
In fact, it's funny, a broker friend of mine reached out to me yesterday, and, I'm still gearing up for the launch in April of the official website. So I'm trying to, the Main Street contributors are easy because we don't have our hands tied by anyone. We just use common sense and we write what we write. But the Wall Street guys have compliance to deal with. So it's really hard to get brokers because they have to get clearance from their compliance department. The compliance department wants to approve everything they publish, which I'm happy to accommodate, of course. So I'm speaking to this guy about getting him lined up to be a contributor. And in the process, of course, we're talking about what's going on in the market. And he's just like, he's telling me that what he's seeing from his perspective and what's going on with his clients and what's going on with their portfolios, he says it's worse than 2008. And it's funny because on Wall Street, they're saying, oh, it's not as bad as 2008. The banking infrastructure is more solid than it was back then. And so it's like, you wonder who to believe,
Don't believe them.
I don't believe that. I believe my broker friend. He's going to be honest with me and tell me what he's seeing, going on in his portfolios, that the market is just, taking a dump, as we say. It looks like we have some panelists, some people to promote. Intuit is not expected to do as well as competition for 2016. I got to tell you, Intuit stock has done very well. I've held Intuit stock. I actually sold it at the end of the year only because I wanted to use that money for other things, but I took a nice profit on the Intuit stock, and I would reinvest in that stock in a heartbeat. I think it's great. It's just, what it is, no matter, if anything, here's how I look at it. And I jokingly said this in the Between Wall and Main group today. Last week, which is, you look at a solid company like Intuit, and by solid company, I mean a company that's got a balance sheet, a company that isn't going anywhere tomorrow. And when their stock takes a hit because the market takes a hit, it's on sale. that's when you buy more. That's when you buy it all the way down because you keep at lowering your average cost, your basis in the shares, so that when it does bounce back, and it will, then you make a ton of money. So, it's like I jokingly said something about how, what do we do when shoes go on sale when there's and Sarah commented, I think, and said, thanks, Seth, I'm going to go buy some shoes.
That wasn't me. That must have been
Yeah, no, Sarah Prevost.
Sarah, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's what you do when something's on sale. You buy. That's when it's time to buy. And so many of us are so in tune when it comes to the stock market to think.
Unless the shoes are out of style.
Fair enough.
Or don't fit.
But that's why I qualified this by talking about companies with solid balance sheets, companies who aren't going anywhere, right? You don't buy garbage. You buy good, solid blue chip companies. A Fortune 500 company like Intuit, is going to be around for a while. There might be peaks and troughs, but all in all, they're going to be around. And when their stock goes down, it's time to buy, and it's time to buy more and more.
Wasn't there some conversation about zero stock and the way
I started a lot of that conversation because
Yeah.
as soon as I start talking about Intuit stock, there's a couple of people in particular who always have to jump on the zero bandwagon and make sure that zero gets heard about. And those people, frankly, annoy me. But nonetheless, yes,
there was like the CFO had like sold the bunch.
The insider. But, when you do, you have to go beyond the surface. So there was an article posted about how Rod Drury and one of the other insiders, one of the founders, had sold a lot of stock. And I don't even know if it was a lot of stock that they sold. I guess for you and I, it would be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But when I dug deeper and read more, and I posted an article about it on the Tumblr site, what I found out was, first of all, it's very normal for insiders to sell. At a certain point, they have to. They're only allowed to sell at certain points, and they have to file specific registrations in order to sell insider stock. So there's a whole process, and it was basically what I got out of the research I did on it was that it was time. It was time for them to sell and take some profits and let those shares go out into the market for other people to take positions in zero stock. I would love to own zero stock. My only problem with it is that it doesn't trade on a U.S. market. And there's additional inherent risks associated with investing in foreign markets. So one person had jumped on the zero bandwagon when I was talking about Intuit stock saying, oh, you should buy zero stock too. And I'm like, be careful about that. Because you have no control over foreign currency exchange rates, which can deeply impact your holdings in companies that trade in foreign markets. If zero, goes public on a U.S. market, I'm in. I'm hook, line, and sinker. I'll buy their stock. I think they're also a very solid company that won't be going anywhere for a while. So that's my 2 cents on this. But let's get into today's topic because we have a very special guest with us. We have Matt here from Expensify.
I want Expensify stock.
I want to buy, Matt, can we buy, when's Expensify going to go public?
I can't say anything about that.
Yeah.
I also don't know that, so.
And of course, I was just making a random assumption that was even a consideration. But let's see. I'm just reading some of the comments in the chat. Thank you, Barbara. Yes, in my former life, I actually was a stockbroker. Prior to getting my accounting degree even. In fact, I dropped out of college at one point as a computer science major to go work on Wall Street. And I worked as a stockbroker for a few years. And I was a 21-year-old kid making more money than I ever should have been allowed to make at that age. And then I decided I was dating a girl. See, girlfriends ruin everything because her family convinced me to go back to school and get a degree because they're like, you're doing really well now. It's going to be more and more tempting to stay out of school. And they said, the market will still be there when you get back. And I'm like, fine. And then after getting my accounting degree, by the time that went by in between, the market wasn't doing as well. And I said, you know what, I should try my hand at something else. So, but I mean, I'm so grateful for the experience. But anyway, we got sidetracked again. Matt, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Morning.
But yes, I do understand the stock market. No, Matt can't discuss publicly if it's even a discussion about Expensify ever going public. But suffice it to say that if Expensify were to go public, I would highly recommend their stock. We're talking about another solid company. How long have you guys been around, Matt? When did you start Expensify? Well, not that you started. You know what I mean.
I wish. So Expensify started in 2009. The Expensify that you guys all know today started in 2010. A lot of people don't know that we actually started as a prepaid debit card company. And so the actual Expensify software wasn't a thing until 2010.
Gotcha. So wait, so did you say it and I just missed it? What exactly was it in that first year before it came to be the Expensify?
It was a prepaid debit card company. So similar to text cards today, Expensify was a prepaid debit card for businesses, and then just had powerful expense reporting software on the back end.
Gotcha.
Does it
Interesting.
still do that?
I'm sorry?
Because I
Can you
think
still do the prepaid debit cards?
Nope, that got dropped pretty much the day we launched that. MasterCard came in and said, no, you guys can't do that. So that got dropped immediately.
Okay.
So MasterCard cut the cord on that? Why?
I don't know all the details. I'm sure David Barrett would love to talk about that.
All right, we'll get him on the next hangout, on the next Zibwim. So let me dig in real deep because I want to get into things. I know, Matt, that you said that there was something new that you guys have going on that you wanted to share with us, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, let's just start in the usual style. Tell us, a little bit about who you are. A lot of us know Expensify, but it's nice to get the background just for context for those who are watching the recording later. So a little bit about who you are. Expensify, we just got the first piece. You guys went from a prepaid debit card company to expense reporting software. So tell us who you are, what you do, and who you guys do it for. Because one of the things I've learned, just kind of paying more and more attention to you guys as a company over the past year, when I first heard of Expensify, I assumed that you were like many of the other exhibitors that we see at the conferences that we all attend, that you cater to small businesses. But you have some very large businesses as clients, don't you? And if you can, please talk about that and just give us a little bit of the bird's eye view of Expensify, who you are, where you sit in the world, what you're doing, who you're doing it with, all that good stuff.
Sure. So I'll start with some background on me. I'm Matt Donaldson, and I head up the Expensify Approved Accountants Program. So for everybody in the audience today, you would fall under my umbrella. So that partner program where we reward you guys for using Expensify for yourselves and for your clients. Expensify started off, as we said, as a prepaid debit card company, and since then has, of course, transformed into expense reports that don't suck. And even, in the past couple of months has gone on beyond that. There's going to be some really cool stuff that you guys will see in the future. Today, it's still just expense reports and expenses, but really cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Expensify did definitely start as a tool for small businesses. So really small businesses and maybe up to 100 employees max, a couple years ago. But since then, companies like Uber would be the best example. They started with us from day one when there was 2 employees. We all know Uber today and how large and what a behemoth they are today. They have pulled us up market. So we've continued to develop features and functionality that large Fortune 500 companies like Yahoo, for instance, is a new customer of ours, love to use.
So let me ask you about that because we discussed this kind of offline this past week, actually, speaking of Uber, because I'm doing some research and I'm minutes away from publishing a very detailed article based on an interview I did with an Uber driver. But when you say Uber, you mean Uber, the company, the people who actually work at the Uber company are using Expensify. But we had an interesting discussion about how the drivers could make use of Expensify, even the free version of the app, right? Where this is something that's interesting that's going to spin off of the article I wrote, because the article is about how Uber drivers, they don't really make enough money from what my research shows to be able to hire a bookkeeper. But they definitely need something to help them keep track of all their income and expenses. And Expensify, it turns out, works beautifully for that. And you said there are a bunch of Uber drivers that already use the app from that side, from the other side of the Uber fence, so to speak, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, Expensify is free to sign up for. So if you've never heard of us and you stumble across the website and you put your email address in there, at that point you're using it for free. And so we actually have a large majority of our user base today that still uses the mobile app, the web app for free. And so a lot of those people would be Uber drivers that need to keep track of simple expenses and then also mileage. So that'd be another big one for them as well.
Gotcha. And you'll all be happy to know I just turned off that enter exit chime so that you won't start salivating every time you hear it. Sorry about that.
It was getting annoying.
It just makes me think of Pavlov's dog. Like every time I hear it, I'm like... So tell us how reimbursements work with Expensify, Matt. I mean, I assume everybody here has had some exposure to Expensify. You've all seen the app, maybe seen my videos on it. No, Kelly has not seen it. Okay, well then, Kelly, get off the phone and get it. I'm kidding. I know you got to do what you got to do. But tell us how reimbursement works with Expensify. Is it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? Give me the poop, as they say in the media industry.
So Expensify and reimbursements is great. We've done reimbursements for years now, and it's been pretty nice. But we were kind of under the restraints of the poorly built ACH system of the U.S., which is extremely slow and still works on the Monday through Friday schedule, even though it's machines doing it, which doesn't make any sense to me. But that's the system we work with today. And so you could still trigger it, whenever you want, whether it's that day or that week or 2 weeks from now, whatever you want to do. But with today's Expensify, we actually offer next day reimbursement. So if I submit a report today, I have the funds back in my account the very next business day. And that's actually part of something that I wanted to talk about today, which is what we call real-time expenses.
Okay. So I did the course on Expensify over at schoolofbookkeeping.com, and I got obviously good exposure through the process of, putting that course together, doing my research on the app. But that was already over a year ago, wasn't it? And so what changes has the product seen over the past year? I mean, when I started looking at it, I think SmartScan was fairly new, right? Or was it? Or was it already?
We debuted SmartScan in 2011, I think.
Okay. When did you add in because this is something I noticed actually after I did the course, but found out it had actually been there, the trip feature where I could forward my itinerary into the app is so cool. Tell us about that, because I just think that's one of the coolest things ever.
The trip part of it's really cool. So if I have an itinerary, if it's a flight, a rental car, hotel receipt, anything like that, all I do is forward it in because, as we all know, all those come over email now. You can't, if you're printing out your receipts for some of those things, you're not doing it right, frankly. And so all you do is forward it in. We see that it's a flight, and then we create a trip for you. And we'll actually give you reminders in the app to say, hey, Delta is delayed again, just like they always are. So don't go to the airport yet. So we give you those nice little notifications in the mobile.
That's your flight?
Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Nice.
It's amazing what they're doing. And we're getting, you guys, if you haven't explored this, the way the technology is going. So, all right, so let's talk about SmartScan now for a minute. I'm sorry, I'm jumping a little bit all over the place, but it's because it's where I'm at. So SmartScan is awesome. I mean, typically with Expensify, the thing you would expect, and it's certainly there, is I grab my mobile app, I take a picture of my receipt, and normally and traditionally I'd have to sit there and then still code it. I'd have to say, okay, this was a meal, right? Here is the payee. SmartScan, of course, fills all that in for me, right? It fills in the payee, the amount, the date, and in many cases it even figures out the purpose based on the payee, right? So if it's a restaurant, it knows it's Coke. If it's a gas station, it knows it's fuel, right? So SmartScan, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, with SmartScan, if for some reason the picture I take isn't the best quality and the OCR technology can't pull the data, at a certain point, if necessary, a human eyes go on it and actually do it for me. So one way or another, SmartScan is going to take care of the coding for me, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So with our SmartScan technology, a lot of people still don't know this today. We actually power the back end of Amex Receipt Match. For those small businesses that have Amex cards and they're using the Amex Receipt Match app, that's us. On the back end, just a really, really, really watered down version of Expensify. And so because of that, Amex makes us have this ridiculously high accuracy rating. I think it's at 98 point something % today. And so because of that, it really is almost like magic, where I snap a picture of the receipt, put my phone in my pocket, and I just forget about it because Expensify is going to take care of it for me. I don't need to do anything with it right there because I'm still in the Pete's coffee shop. What do I need to do with my receipt at that point? And so I put my phone in my pocket, throw the receipt away, and I'm done. Expensify does the rest for me.
Great. And all right, so we have SmartScan. We have the trip itinerary feature. You guys have a mileage tracker and even a time tracker, right? Which is why I think it's perfect for Uber drivers because they can do their miles and their time, whether when they're driving. One of the things I learned in my Uber research was that Uber, when they report their mileage, only reports the mileage from the time they picked someone up to the time they've dropped them off. They don't include the mileage that they had to drive to get to the passenger, and they definitely don't include the mileage that they have to, sort of drive after they've dropped somebody off. The guy that I spoke with said, I assumed that they would just pick up another fare somewhere around there. He said, no, in many cases, we've got to drive back to our base area without a fare. And before we can get the next one. So there's a lot of miles they drive that don't get included, which is why I think Expensify is perfect for somebody like that. And I'm just using that as one example. Obviously, anybody who's in business who has expenses to deal with needs to use Expensify. No question. So it's funny, I'm looking in my sample, Expensify client here, where the other day did a smart scan of a receipt, and sure enough, it figured out, Union 76, gas station, fuel, all that. So you link this up. Now let's talk about integration. Who does Expensify integrate with? We know QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online for sure. Who else?
So QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online, Xero, Intact, NetSuite. Those are the big ones. And then Desktop, I'm sure some of you today use that integration. I'm proud to say that we're actually redoing it. So for everybody that's on QuickBooks Desktop today, I just saw Sarah's face light up. We're actually redoing that integration, so it's going to get much better.
Great.
Okay, so all right, so it sounds like Expensify makes out-of-pocket expenses a breeze. What about company cards? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so a lot of people still to this day, even though we've had it for a very long time, have no idea that we can do company cards. And in fact, we automate it. So just like QBO is able to pull in those bank feeds directly into the software and allow you to kind of code them there, well, rather than do that by hand, you put it in the hands of the employees. We feed those transactions into their account. When they're snapping pictures of the receipts, we automatically match them up. We already know what merchant it is, so we can code it for them. And at that point, we can send in those automated transactions already classified into QuickBooks, into Xero, to match up with those bank fees that are coming down directly from the bank. So no more hand reconciling the company cards at the end of the month.
And then am I wrong, or is it also true that the employees can use, let's say the employee is using their personal card and they happen to be charging a business-related expense, can't they connect that card's feed to their own account and then pick and choose, hey, here are the ones that need to go get reimbursed by the company? They can do that with their personal cards as well, correct?
They definitely can. And they can all go on the same report. So no need to do separate reports, do separate schedules, anything like that. Everything can go all in one report, and we can automate that too.
Right. The difference is one's a reimbursable and one is just telling the company where you use their card.
Yep.
I love the idea that employees don't have to start their report every month with a company card, that it's just started for them. And then it's populated during the month. I love that.
Right. And well, now what's happening more and more is that from what I saw, and I haven't explored it yet, Matt, it looks like now I can sort of configure Expensify to automatically harvest the expense report and say, you know what, every week just go through the receipts that are out there and harvest them and compile them into an expense report. Am I spoiling it? Is that the new feature you wanted to talk about, or was that something else?
That's what I wanted to talk about. And so
all right, so I'll shut up and let you talk then.
I'm really happy you brought it up. So the last, I don't know, basically from when I started at Expensify, we were still working on this. It took us a very, very long time to do this and make it work really well. But I'm really proud of it because we use it today. We have all kinds of companies that use it today, and it's really freaking awesome. Because really all you have to do now is snap a picture of your receipt, and literally the rest is done for you. Personally, you guys have seen me at conferences. You've seen me all over the place. I haven't filled out an expense report in over a year now. All I have ever done, when you guys see me, when I buy you a drink at these conferences, all I do is snap a picture of that receipt, put my phone in my pocket, and Expensify does the rest for me. So our accountant can say, all right, I want receipts on a daily basis. I want it on a weekly basis, biweekly, monthly. And then because we can see those flight receipts, we can also do it on a trip-by-trip basis. And so what will happen is Expensify automatically groups my receipts for me into a report, because we want the context of, why I'm traveling, what I'm doing with those receipts. And then we'll automatically submit those for me on that scheduled basis as well. So I no longer even have to go into the mobile app, log into the web application, and click submit. The software just does it for me. And so at this point today, it's really sweet. I snap pictures of my receipts, let Expensify do what it needs to. If I want to add a quick comment, I can, things like that. But it's really sweet because every couple of days I'll get a little push notification on my phone saying, "Shane, you've been reimbursed, $50 to $100." I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I'll see it in my bank account tomorrow. And so it really is truly real time. And then also the best part of it for the accountant is that you guys have a very, very real time view of expenses as the course of the month goes on.
You mentioned being able to put in a comment because we're required to, especially for meals and entertainment, put in why we have that meal and who we're with, or we have to prove some business use.
Yep.
So it's real important that whoever is doing the meals and entertainment, puts a little note that, I'm with Susie and she's with such and such company.
Sarah, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So here's a receipt that I smart scanned the other day, just playing around with how it works. So when I click on it,
All right.
right here's my comment.
Okay.
It's categorized as fuel. It's the gas station receipt. This all came in automatically. The payee, the date, the total. I actually did have to categorize it, fuel, Matt. So maybe you can help me with that. And then the tag, when you on the company side, when you create your Expensify account, you set up what's called the policy, and the policy determines how different things are sort of used. So the tag is being used, as you can see, for the customer. So I can assign it to a customer if necessary.
Or class.
Or class. So Matt, is that true? You have the choice to use the tag for either customer or class?
Or both.
You can do both.
Really? Have you implemented the or both?
For desktop, not yet. We're working on it, Sarah. It's getting there.
But for QBO, it's both, because I have this link to QBO now. So that's it. I mean, it's that simple,
There's
Sarah.
your
And even
job costing right there.
as you're taking the snapshot of the receipt, you can, of course, post a comment right there on your mobile app.
Which
So-
feeds into the memo field, which is
Right. So let's go back to like bird's eye view, high level view of this. So now we have corporate cards. From the company's perspective, we have corporate cards. We issue them to our employees. There's no reimbursement needed, but we can sort of compel the employees to code things for us. So that way they can come in and they can get coded and then fed into QuickBooks automatically. So we don't have to there's no intervention. Now, what about the approval process, Matt? And of course, I know the answer to that question, but I want everybody else to understand how the approval process works, how it can be set up. And that goes back into, where you set up your policy.
So Expensify, as you guys know it today, historically, we've always had an approval process that you can put in place where it has to go through like a manager's approval. We can have 6 levels of approval if you really need to. But part of this real-time expense release that we did, we added automatic approvals, which is really sweet. Because what it'll do is it looks at that report that's been submitted, whether it was manually submitted by the employee or Expensify kind of sucked it up using this real-time expense harvest that we have. And as long as there's no violations, so they have receipts where they need them, they've coded the expenses, they've added those comments for the business purpose, Sarah, everything that they need to do on that report is just going to get automatically approved because there's no need for somebody to sit there and look at 10 Starbucks receipts for $3 each because you guys, your time is worth way more than that. Definitely not worth it to look through all those receipts.
right. So a company can decide for themselves what's material for them.
Yep.
What's material for a little company is not material for a larger company.
Right. And you set a dollar threshold, right? So I could say anything under $25, just to prove it, I'm not going to worry about that. But can you also set an aggregate limit where if all those under $25 expenses start adding up to over $100 in a month or something? I remember when I used to be an auditor, we used to have both thresholds, the individual and the aggregate threshold. So I'm wondering if we can employ those policies at both levels.
Yep, so we can set thresholds on a global expense level. So we can say max expense amount per expense could be $50. We can
Seriously?
Yep, we can set it by category. So we can say for meals and entertainment, we can give them a little bit more maybe if we want to override that or less. We can do it by day, so we can give them per diem limits. We can require receipts specifically for those types of things. And then we can also, what we can do for the total report is set automatic reimbursement thresholds. So it'll get approved, but as far as reimbursing it, if it's over a certain amount, the administrator has to come in and they'll probably want to review it because that report's over, like $6,000 or something like that. And then they can come in and say, okay, yeah, this looks good. I'm going to reimburse the employee.
That's awesome. So Now, and as far as the reimbursements go, those so again, we may not want to necessarily require approval if it's a small amount, but at a certain point, we do establish and will want to establish that somebody will need to review and approve the expenses before we just reimburse them. And then I can automate the actual, once it's approved, they can get reimbursed. What was it? I remember it was through PayPal I could do, right? I can link up a PayPal account and say, just reimburse my employees out of my PayPal account. What other options are there in terms of how I can get them reimbursed?
So there's PayPal. The one that we really tout is our ACH reimbursement because it's really easy to set up and we don't charge for it. And it's actually faster than PayPal at this point. Because like I said, if I hit reimburse today, the employee has it back in their account ready to use the very next business day. So it's not like the normal ACH where if I say yes, go, they put the check in the mail tomorrow and then it still has to get sent to the employee over the normal ACH. No, the check's in their account ready to use the very next business day.
That's so cool. Yep. I love that. I mean, because employees, a lot of times employees, they don't have a lot of money to go, they can't afford to be out there with $100, $200 in charges that they've put on their card. So it's nice to know that you can reimburse them like quick, and get the money right back in their account. I remember my first job out of college after I got my accounting degree was as an auditor, and we had to wait like sometimes a couple of weeks before, we got our check. And I think we had the choice to have our reimbursements included with our paycheck, or we could request to have a separate check come directly. And the separate check would come faster theoretically, depending on the timing. But it still seemed like, I remember, especially in those days, it seemed like it took forever to get reimbursed. So one thing I'm wondering, Matt, is, a lot of our clients out there are going to be smaller businesses. And I know some of us have that challenge when we approach our smaller business clients and say, hey, guys, I think you need to use Expensify. And the client might come back and say, I have less than 10 employees. I can just do it with spreadsheets. So what do you say to a company like that where they have less than 10 employees, let's say, in terms of how to convince them that Expensify is still going to be a huge value add for a company like that?
Yeah, so I think still to this day, Excel is our biggest competitor because it gives that illusion that it's free and that you can get the job done, because you can get the job done. But if you step back and think about it, how much time is that employee spending gathering those receipts, trying to find them to make sure they don't forget them, and then sitting there in Excel doing this manual process and then turning it in, and then there's probably an approval process.
Then there's hell for the accountants.
Yep. Then there's
the mistakes.
Yep, mistakes. Then
back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yep, and then the accountant still has to manually code everything into QuickBooks or Xero or wherever that's ending up going. So if you step back and think about it, Excel's not free. It does cost money, and it's time that it really costs. And most employees are, maybe $15 an hour what they're getting paid. They're spending more than an hour. Expensify, the most it costs per employee is $9. We even have a cheaper plan that's $5 per employee, and it's only if they use it. So if you really think about it, the costs, definitely outweigh it. So Excel is not free, and for anybody that's 10 employees and under, definitely a really cost-effective solution to help you keep track of expenses, especially if you're going to grow. At some point you're going to have to do that no matter what. You can't continue to use Excel forever. So why not put something in place early, especially if it makes sense?
Yeah.
I have a question. If you're, of course, I dove in without finding out whether I could ask a question. If the argument is Excel's free, and that really is the stopping, end all deal breaker with the client, as an accountant, I want to start looking at, well, how can I pay for it, offer it to my client, and they still think it's free, but I'm rolling it into my fees. I want to see if that's an option.
And while we're on that topic, Matt, might as well talk about the partner program for accountants.
Yeah, there's my lead.
Thanks for the segue into that, Sarah. That's much appreciated. So the partner program at Expensify, for one, you guys all as accountants, your accounts are free, so we don't charge for your own accounts. But for your clients, we're going to give you a discount. And so those discounts are tiered. It starts at 15%. And so if you wanted to, it's really cost effective to build it into your pricing model, especially because we only charge on a per active user basis. So if you have a client and they're 10 employees, well, put all 10 in there because they might have an expense at any given time. But if only 2 use it that month, we might bill you, $10 minus the 15%. Once you get to 100 users, we do bump it up to 20% discount. And then at that point, we also take you to Maui. So a couple of you in the audience are going to Maui this year. So that's raising his
I
arm.
told you we were going to talk about Hawaii again.
So,
But 20% for all my clients added together, not just one. Okay, I'm gonna make it clear.
across all your clients. So that can be 100, small business owners that are using it to keep track of everything. That can be one huge client. We don't care. So all of your clients in aggregate, that's where we start to track of that, and that's where that discount bumps up to the 20%.
Now, while we're here, Matt, we're actually more than 30 minutes in. Did you want to give a demo of Expensify? Do you want to share your screen and show us?
Yeah.
Show us the magic.
Yeah, give me a second to definitely wanted to show some cool stuff. Most of you guys have seen the software, so I won't do too in-depth of a demo. But let's, so this Zoom is pretty cool too. I've never used this.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, love Zoom.
Zoom is the Expensify of webinar software.
Okay.
Right.
We're actually looking for new webinar software or meeting software, so we might have to look.
Mhm.
Cool. So this is Expensify. For those of you that haven't seen it, we've got our expenses. So you can see we pulled in some from the cards, Citibank card. It's got all the information. So that's good all there. Part of the new stuff that we've done with real time is on this reports page, we've actually created what we call the Expensify inbox. And so right now, it's just showing the to-dos that I have in Expensify, because ultimately, we don't want you to spend all day in Expensify. It's not like QuickBooks. This isn't where you guys live. This is where you get stuff done, you use it as a tool, and then get the hell out because you shouldn't be spending all day in here. And so this is my inbox, and the goal, just like any other inbox, is to get down to 0. And so you can see here, it's telling me, hey, you need to submit your own report, you need to review these, and then you need to send these to QuickBooks, and this one happens to be going to NetSuite. And so if I were to actually review one of these, I'm just going to, the best part of Expensify now is that, again, with that auto approval, the only time it's going to stop at me for review is if there's violations, or Expensify has also maybe found something like they didn't smart scan a receipt. They entered it in manually. We don't think anybody should ever be entering anything manually. So that's kind of a red flag to us. Or another good case would be duplicates. If we find duplicates, we're going to want you to take a look at those. Or maybe they did smart scan it. We found one amount, and then they altered that amount. That's another red flag to us. So if I go begin review, Expensify immediately starts calling my attention to the expenses on the report, saying, hey, this one's missing a comment. What do you want to do? It also looks like a duplicate expense. I could reject this one back to them. I could skip it if I wanted to go on, but I can also view it, and it's going to tell me exactly what's going on. And so the best part, and this is actually new for the duplicate expenses, and it's really sweet. We're really proud of it because not only does it check on this report, it also checks against other reports in your account that you might not have submitted yet. So we're looking at your entire account for potential duplicates. So if I go resolve, it's going to tell me exactly what it is. Oh, it's 2 charges for Chipotle on this day for this amount. What do you want to do? You can delete one of them and reject it back. You can merge the 2 of them into one, say, hey, this looks like a duplicate. I'm going to fix it for you. Or we could even just ignore it. And if this report, and so, it has this guided review, because we think of expenses almost like needles in a haystack. You don't really want to spend your time sifting through that entire haystack. We're going to bring the needles to you, and you can decide what to do with them. And so if I just kind of skip through this report here, at that point it's ready to go, and I can final approve, and then, reimburse if I wanted to, or just send it directly back to the accounting package. In this case, it happens to be QuickBooks Online. Some other cool stuff that we've added is in the admin section. So all these real-time features that we've been talking about that we recently released, those live in what we call a policy in Expensify, which is basically the rules that can be put in place for a group of employees. In most of the cases for everybody in the audience, it would be a policy per client. So you can think of your clients being equal to a policy in Expensify. If you did need to break it out further for one of those clients that maybe is a little bit bigger and wants to separate rules by department, things like that, you can definitely do so. Expensify is really configurable in that way. And so a couple things, we can set some of our report level rules. And so this is where we say, how we want to do that automatic grouping and harvesting. And so I've got it enabled. And so you guys can see that we have some options for how we want to group them. As available would mean that we try to group receipts daily as they come into Expensify. And then we'll attempt to automatically submit them daily if they're ready to go. Weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and then on a trip-by-trip basis. And then a really cool thing, because you guys have seen most of this, and if you haven't, let me know so that I can stop and go more in depth in the policy. But another really cool thing that we've recently released, and I don't think I've told you about this, Seth, is our first attempt at travel. And it's not booking travel in Expensify. But what it is when you turn this on, we basically have what we call the concierge. And so you can set some of your, parameters for travel for your employees. So we've got a star rating for hotels. We've got rental car types. We've got flight reservations and classes and things like that. And so what we'll do is when those employees forward in those receipts, we look at it and we say, all right, you booked at the Sheraton on these dates for this amount. Great, you actually beat the market rate, or you met the market rate, or maybe you went over the market rate. And so we'll flag those on the expenses, as like red, green, or yellow to let you know exactly what's going on with your employees. And then the best part is...
And wait, so what happens if I have their hotel reservations at hotels with a star rating of 3 and they book themselves at a 5-star hotel? Will it flag them and say, hey, you're over the star rating limit for hotels? How does that work?
So what it'll do is look at the rate that they booked that hotel at, regardless of the stars. And if they were under, or it checks against a 3-star rate in that area. So
Okay.
if they somehow booked a 5-star hotel under the 3-star rate, props to them because they are a really savvy traveler. But for most, it's going to flag it because it's definitely going to be over that amount.
Okay, and so when it flags it, it just lets them know, hey, you're over. And then obviously the company can decide if they make the employee pay the difference or what they do, right?
Yep, and you kind of hit the flip side of that of what I'm about to go into, which is Expensify rewards. And so what we can do is reward our employees for being savvy business travelers and say reward them and then give them a percentage of what they beat the market rate at. So if they booked a hotel for $100 and the market rate's $150, well, what do you want to do with that extra $50? And you can actually incentivize them to book cheaper travel and give them a percentage of that difference and use Expensify to pay them back for it.
That's awesome.
Which becomes taxable wages.
Yep, it does. So we can definitely do reporting on that. Don't even worry.
All right, I'm always deep. Okay.
As soon as we brought this into Expensify, I go, "Are we going to report on this? That's taxable." And everybody looks at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Guys, I'm not an accountant, but I talk to them every day, and they're going to
love my Matt.
What's going on."
Yeah,
definitely some reporting on that. Don't even worry. So this is kind of our first attempt at travel. We're really excited about it. We use it today, and I just took a trip to Phoenix last week to go visit a larger firm. And the best part is I got paid to take that trip because I actually stayed at a friend's house. We put that in the system, and because I beat the market rate by a bunch of money, Expensify just paid me to travel to go talk to this firm. So it was really, really awesome.
I had a question. Now I'm losing my mind. Never mind. I'll come back to it. Keep going.
I always have a question. As a nonprofit accountant, we really look at meals and entertainment especially. So if you're in a restaurant, there's always a 2-part receipt. There's the receipt that says, yeah, I spent $60. But then there's the receipt that says what you bought for the $60. And so if someone says, hey, I took so-and-so out to dinner, but then I look at the detail and I go, but you only bought one meal, a real expensive meal, or federal grants don't allow us to pay for alcohol, I have to look for drinks. Is there any way I could put in that I have to have both pieces of the receipt?
We don't have any rules like that where you would need 2 copies of a receipt for meals and entertainments. That would be more of like a internal company policy.
Internal thing, yeah. To teach people to chase after waiters and waitresses because, half the time you don't get that.
Yep, that's true.
That's the stuff I need too. But I was curious on the split expense. I saw that. Split and pay. If I
You
have,
said that? Yeah.
an employee that buys something that goes to multiple jobs and it's class coded as well, how detailed can I get this?
Yeah. So if I need to split an expense,
Mm-hmm.
split, I can do as many splits as I need to. So let's say I can add another split here. We could just say $50, something like that.
Okay.
At that point, these tags right now are actually my customers and jobs from QuickBooks. And so
Okay.
I can go ahead and itemize it and put it out to the various customers' jobs. If I happen to be using classes at the line level, those would also be available here.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's
this-
perfect for like Staples when you've got some, all different kinds of budget accounts that you need to go to.
But this is through QuickBooks Online availability, right? The desktop, how much of the feature for the desktop syncing works?
So most of this works for the desktop sync. The only
Okay.
thing, and Sarah brought this up, is that we can't do both customer job and class at the line level with QuickBooks Desktop as it stands today. That's getting.
Okay. 'Cause
But we
that's-
came up with the workaround.
we did?
Yes, we did.
Sarah, do you
Well,
want to talk about that?
Yeah, what's the workaround? Because I have QBO and then I have QB Desktop. I got to do both.
Right. What I did, when it interfaces with QuickBooks Desktop, it'll come in as a bill, and I lose my actual vendors.
Okay.
So I didn't want to bring that in that way. I wanted to bring in every single credit card charge.
Mm-hmm.
So the beauty of Expensify is you can also take that expense report and export it as a comma delimited file. So I went, wait a minute. In the accountant's version of Desktop, I can use the batch enter.
Okay.
So when the report is ready, say I have a company credit card,
Mm-hmm.
I export the comma delimited file, and you can, is she going to show me that?
Great.
I can tell Expensify I want these particular fields and in this particular order, or I can tell QuickBooks to have my screen in the same order. And yeah, look at that. So I can cut and paste in one click the whole report into the batch enter screen, and everything that doesn't exist comes up in red. So say the vendor name or the account isn't the same, and then I can sit and then put in on my customer codes. I can step back and look at the whole report, work on the memos,
Imagine energy.
and get that entire report just the way I want it. I'm touching it one time, and then I click enter, and it's all posted.
Okay.
Instead of just, usually we're touching it too many times. You import all the credit card charges, and then you're going in and you're editing all these individual charges. This way I can get all the information in one batch from Expensify, edit it once, and post.
Yep. And if anybody wants access to
Sorry, I had to mute for a minute.
let me know. I'm always happy to. I think I made Sarah one, or made hers better. Made it faster, rather, not better.
But is it client by client where we can save how we want the export to look? It wasn't global. It was more, I can't remember.
Yeah, so you can, if you wanted to do it yourself, in the policy editor here, we have these export formats. This is what Sarah did. Made a new one to basically allow you to just pull out what you need to. So in this example, we pulled out like the timestamps, like the merchant, things like that. And so you can customize this client to client, or if you want to, we can do a more global one that's kind of standardized.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
I find that people
Yeah.
say that a lot when they're using Expensify. That's cool. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's such smart technology. Speaking of, Matt, how far away are we, do you think, from, I know, for example, that when I take a picture with my mobile device, any picture, whether it's of a receipt or any picture I take, there's metadata that goes into that picture. We never really see it, but there's data in there that can confirm where I was when I took the picture. the time of day. There's information that's actually gathered in the data of every photo that I ever take on my mobile device. And I know that companies like yours are looking at ways of mining that data such that, for example, as time goes on, the technology gets even better and better. It's going to be known where I live, right? So I live in Burbank, California, so that when I'm using a product like Expensify and I'm traveling, the app will actually be able to tell, hey, Seth's away from home. He just took a snapshot of a receipt from a restaurant. This must be a travel meal. Versus when I take a snapshot of a restaurant receipt when I'm at home, where it's likely or less likely to be a travel meal. How far away are we, do you think, from that kind of technology?
I'd say we're very close. We already started using things like location today. For instance, if we are doing international travel, we'll pick up that you're scanning a receipt in Spain. And so we know to try and default or check against the receipt more so to make sure that it is, in fact, euros instead of a U.S. dollar, because U.S. dollar would be what our home currency is set to. So we're already using things like location today. And we're going to be doing some really cool stuff with that type of information in the future. So definitely stay tuned for more on that.
This is where it gets really cool, because it's just more and more, everything just gets automated. Like wherever I go, I just snap a receipt, I'm done. And the app just knows, based on all the information it can gather from everything from where I was when I took that photo to what's in the actual photo, to just bookkeeping is going to become more and more automated as we go forward. And that just points even more to the fact that as accounting and bookkeeping professionals, we have to get used to the idea that as we move forward, we're going to be less and less required or needed to do the actual, what we thought of traditionally as bookkeeping work, right? And more thought of as people who will take the information that's gathered and compiled and organized and coded for us and use it to provide more strategic guidance to our clients. So we're definitely becoming more and more strategic because, and the first part of that strategic guidance is educating our clients as to how to use a product like Expensify and explaining to them, even in that 10-person company example where they might be inclined to think it's not worth it. You know what you do? Here's irony for you. You take a spreadsheet and use the spreadsheet to do the cost-benefit analysis and say, here's what it's costing you for the time your employees are spending to put together their expense reports versus what it would cost if you're using Expensify. And say, here's the last spreadsheet you'll ever need to look at least for this kind of analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you do it. So, Matt, how do we get into the partner program? Is there a place where everybody can go, a link that people can click on to go sign up for that, or do they just email you? How does that work?
You can email me. You can hit me up in the Facebook group. You can let our support team know. For those of you that don't know, we have chat support down here.
I was wondering who that was.
That's Christina. Some of you might have met her at some of the conferences. But anytime you want support, you just pop this bad boy open and let us know. And so if you're not already a partner and don't know anything about the partner codes or haven't heard anything about it yet, don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you can hit up our support team and say, hey, I'd like to become a partner.
So would that give us something for our website with a referral link, or?
Yep. So we can give you a partner code, and we can do referral links, whatever we need to do. And basically what that would do is attach the partner codes to your clients, to your account, so that we would ultimately give you a discount on Expensify.
And then, and there's different levels of programs, as I recently learned. So one program is the one I chose because I don't want to have to spend too much time, is where I basically just get a link and refer them to Expensify, and Expensify takes it from there. But there's other levels where you can be more involved in the implementation process if you're inclined to. So Matt, help me understand sort of the difference and what the benefits are. Why would I want to spend the extra time? I assume there's a better payout for those who want to be more involved in implementation, and of course the opportunity to get paid for the implementation itself.
Yep, absolutely. So if you're doing the implementation yourself, you're supporting the client, we're going to give you an ongoing discount for the life of the client using Expensify. That doesn't stop unless they decide to move away from you as an accountant, a bookkeeper. And so that's in perpetuity. But what Seth alluded to was we have more of a referral program, or if you just want to refer your clients to Expensify, I don't really want to be involved in the setup process, which I know all of you guys like to have a little bit of control over how some of that information flows to the accounting system. So I don't know why that would ever happen. But if so, you can definitely just refer them to us. We'll give you like a one-time payout for the client, things like that. So just really depends on the level of involvement that you'd like to have with Expensify and your client.
Sometimes they're not clients. Sometimes a complete stranger will see a comment, click on a referral link, and then I want a brownie point. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's the great thing is a lot of us get, I think, almost locked into the thinking that this is only for our own clients. But the reality is, and look what I've got set up on my site. I'll show you as an example of how to do this. I have a partners page, and here's my Expensify one. You can see I've got T-Sheets and Smartsheet on here too. But this way, anybody who stumbles on my site can click on my affiliate link, and I can get paid for the referral. So I highly recommend that as you're joining these affiliate programs, then create a page like this, or create a section on your site for partners and have a separate page for each. That's going to be the next evolution of what I'm doing here on my site, so that you can, first of all, get the SEO. Somebody might stumble on your page when they're looking for expense reporting software, and get the credit for the referrals. They don't have to be your clients for you to get credit. They just have to be somebody that you referred to them.
Yep.
I have a question, Matt. How do we get a hold of you? I mean, you said your Facebook. Do you want to give us a link? I want to check out being a part. I was a long time ago. I want to say over 5 years ago, and for whatever reason I let it drop. I'd like to come back.
Okay. Well, that's awesome if you've been using it for 5 years. We didn't even have a partner program 5 years ago. We only started it like 2 years. So
I'm looking up my information. The email address was a prior company that I worked with, and I did have a unique ID. So
cool. Yeah. So let us know. You can hit us up in support. You can hit me up in that Facebook group, or if you guys want,
Facebook group. Okay.
Or my email address is just md@expensify.com. So M for Matt, D for Donaldson @expensify.com.
Okay.
So Matt, if we already have like a free account, we can just hit chat and they'll upgrade us to an accountant partner level?
Yep, they'll mark you as an accountant. It might still ask you for a billing card, but that's just because we assume that you would set up clients as well.
Gotcha.
But if we mark your account as free, of course, there would be no charge because we don't look at your account when we go to look for billable activity.
Nice.
But we can set up clients so they get charged or we get charged.
Yep, so you can pay us, client can pay us, however you want that relationship to work.
Because right now I have like 1 or 2 clients that, have me as like the wingman.
Oh, let's change it.
Yeah.
Yep.
How does the wingman thing work? I'm still not honestly 100% clear on that. Like, why would I do that? It sounds like I'm giving somebody else the ability to submit expenses on my behalf. Or like, tell me about that.
Yep. So the wing person. So for all the women in the audience, I don't.
Yeah.
It's delegating access to your account to somebody else. And so the best example, and the reason that we even made it, was for like an executive admin who's doing the expense reports for their CEO, who thinks they're too cool to still do their expense reports.
Right.
So probably most of the business owners that you guys work with today, they still probably feel that way, no matter how easy we make it for them. Just basically giving somebody else access to do things on your behalf. But at that point, rather than you just sharing passwords, which we can't track that, we just think it's that person, there's an auditable trail of who did what. So we know exactly who was performing actions in Expensify on somebody else's behalf.
It's sort of like giving somebody power of attorney for expense reporting purposes.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and we can have, there's different levels of power. You can give people just submit only, approve only, or you can give them full access, which would mean that if you're like an admin in Expensify, you have that full power to do things administratively within Expensify.
Like work on the policies and things.
So now that makes sense. I'm glad you illustrated the use case because I was looking at that and I was like, why would I want to do that? But now it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Audit trail.
Well, but aside from that, like doing it in the first place, it's for people who think they're too important to do their own expenses.
I have a client who the administrator is a control freak and doesn't let anybody do their expense reports but her.
They're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that person
These are very highly paid executives that are treated like they're two because they can't do it perfectly. It's like, how do you fight that?
Well, you explain to them, look, there's an approval process. So you let them. First of all, it's a therapy session because you got to teach them how to let go. Right. So that's therapy 101. Here's how you let go. and then
It's the higher ups that have to.
and explain to them that there's an approval process that can be put into place, so you don't have to submit all the expenses, but you can certainly
She has to
approve them. Let them submit their own expenses. Let them learn to use their mobile phones, and then you just
I'm
approve
used to
them.
executive directors maybe being too important, but all the employees.
See, that's my problem is I don't have the patience to work with people like that. I just don't.
I know, but hey, I'm not doing it.
Right.
As long as I'm not doing it. Yeah, I'm going to get them on Expensify. You wait.
I'll never forget. I had a client years ago who's one of these companies that, and you get a lot of this out here in Los Angeles, of course, one of the companies that would loan out jewelry to the stars when they're going on the red carpet, right? And the whole deal is they get to wear it, and the jewelry store gets the credit for being the one who provided them with their jewelry. And then afterwards, they can either buy it or return it, right? So they have a lot of very famous people that would come in, and I was doing their bookkeeping for a while. This was years ago. And I was kicked out because Naomi Watts wanted to come in to look at something. And I guess they felt that I couldn't be in the presence of Naomi Watts. It was, I might attack her or something. Because you know how I am. I just attack people randomly. I just jump down there and beat them down. Anyway, I just thought it was funny. So that was the beginning of the end of my relationship with that client, because I just don't have the tolerance or the patience for that kind of mentality, I guess is the best way I can put it. I don't even want to be around people like that. Mm-hmm. So I get into people like this where it's like, oh, I'm too important. And it's like, no, you're just a person. At the end of the day, you have the same bodily functions that I have.
But I want to insert this before we get off. Expensify is the type of company that if it doesn't do something that you want it to do, don't give up. Tell them, because this company will listen.
Yes, absolutely.
Please tell us.
Yep, it's 903. Matt, do you want to give out your email address one more time to make sure people know how to get in touch with you?
Sure. Email address is just M for Matt, D for Donaldson, @expensify.com. Feel free to send me questions, tell me hello, whatever you want to do. You're welcome to email me.
Right. And of course, Matt is in the group on Facebook at Between Will and Maine. So very, very easy to reach Matt and find him, stalk him, and let him know that you need information for how you can make Expensify make your life more better. Gina, what's going on later today?
Smart Sheets. It's going to be a Smart Sheet kind of hangout for me.
Cool. So it sounds like a smart hangout.
Come join us.
Come join. What time? What time? What channel?
Eastern. Pardon?
What time? What channel?
What channel? You have to be a member of our Facebook group, or I can email you with the link, but it's private to join. It'll be public for everyone to watch later. So find me on Facebook, ask me to join the group, and come join us this afternoon.
What's the Facebook page?
Small Business Small Business Accounting Advisors.
SBAA. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming out and spending time with us and sharing about Expensify. I look forward to having you back on real soon, so we'll get an update, especially as you're rolling out new features that will make Expensify even better.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great Friday, and we'll see you later on, 2:30 this afternoon on Gina's Hangout. SBAA, Small Business Accounting Advisors.
Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.
Yeah.